right. Well, let's begin this afternoon. Today, we have a special class for students from graduate school in the Department of World Religion Studies of Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Additionally, this is an open lecture, and we welcome friends and guests to join this lecture. Why is the lecture said to be special? As today we have invited a teacher of particular significance. Previously, lectures were given by researchers from Academy of Social Sciences or by professors from universities or colleges. But we are researchers of religion when it comes to religious studies. There is a vast, rich, and profoundly significant community of religious practitioners. To study religions deeply, it's better to have face-to-face communication with influential elite figures within religious communities. So today, to use a classic Buddhist expression, we get connected with a master of Buddhism, particularly in Tibetan Buddhism, to attend today's lecture. So this is a truly special teacher, different from the ones we have invited in the past. The teacher we have invited today is the highly respected Khenpo Sodargye. Many of us have already known this master. I'd like to take this opportunity to give a brief introduction. The master was born on June 4th in 1962 in the Tibetan calendar. To us, he is a young master, but he possesses profound scholarship and remarkable spiritual cultivation. It's highly respected from academics. He ordained at Larung 5 Science Buddhist Academy in 1985. He devoted himself to the study of Buddhist teachings and rigorous practice, thus achieving great accomplishment. There are two layers of meaning of what I said. One is in doctrine and theory. He has depth. In practice and cultivation, he has also achieved mastery. So, the master, the one we are listening to today, is here with us now in the classroom. He not only explains things from the theoretical and philosophical perspectives we are familiar with, but also addresses what these mean in terms of religious practice and cultivation. This is something we academics don't understand or haven't explored. From this perspective, it is also a very valuable, important opportunity for us to study and engage in dialogue seriously. Khenpo Sodargye has written such an impressive number of works, and academics even feel ashamed. I saw the list has 2 pages dedicated to his works. Recently, the Khenpo gave me one of his books, and I brought it with me today. These are his 2 most recently published books. One is Suffering is Life, a title that is deeply philosophical. Academics often say, without suffering there is no religion. Faith is about facing suffering and easing pain. No matter which world or circumstances you're in, and no matter what path or fate your life takes, you cannot escape the theme of suffering. So this statement is quite philosophical. Suffering is life. A thick book with life insights. He also wrote another book, Doing is Gaining, and this one is about significance and understanding the world. He expressed his thoughts all in very concise language. So I think this afternoon is a wonderful opportunity. We can communicate directly with a master from the religious community and listen to his words of wisdom. We can seize the chance to reflect on life, society, and even the universe. So I'll stop here and give the precious time to the Venerable Master. Thank you all so much for being here today.
Let me add one thing. The gentleman and the host who just introduced the Khenpo is Zhou Xingping, the director of the Institute for World Religion Studies. the president of Chinese Association Religious Studies and member of Academic Division of CAS. He serves on the NPC Standing Committee and lectured to the CPC Central Committee Political Bureau before. So, as you can see, several of our directors have come to attend this lecture today. You can imagine how much we attach importance to this event, and we hope everyone won't miss the opportunity and listen to it attentively. I believe that you will gain great benefits from it. Thank you all very much.
Now, let's give the floor to the Khenpo Sodargye. Let us welcome the master to give the lecture with a warm round of applause.
I'm truly very glad that we are able to meet again today, especially since it feels like it was only just a few days ago that we last saw each other. It's wonderful to have this opportunity to reconnect so soon. As Director Zhuo Jinping has just mentioned a moment ago, it was just a couple of days ago, quite recently. It was on December 12th, 2012, which happened to fall on a Wednesday. On that day, there was a rather special event has just concluded right here. When Director Zhuo summed up the event on that day, I was deeply moved. Indeed, Tibetan Buddhism teaches this is the case of dependent origination, not planned, yet still interdependence. In his closing remarks on that day, the International Summit of Charity and Religions at Chinese Academy of Social Science concluded on such a truly special day. Only a few days from today, I have the chance to return here and communicate with all of you and share some of my insights with all of you. As the director just mentioned at the beginning, that my academic background in Buddhism, spiritual practice and knowledge, I don't think that I possess the profound or remarkable attainments like his describe, because Buddhist teachings are extensive, leaving me with a humbling sense of my limitations. Buddhism teaches that human has self-awareness, also self-aware aspect, meaning understanding oneself. I was thinking many young people at the Chinese Academy of Social Science and some professors, experts, in terms of time spent studying Buddhism. I have spent a relatively longer time because I have believed in Buddhism since I was a child. And I have been studying Buddhism for nearly 30 years now. I have been intensively studying at Buddhist institutes in Tibet all along. So in this regard, perhaps I have spent a bit more time than others. Beyond this, there is no higher spiritual realization. Regardless, today we are here together to explore the essence of the science of the mind. This is meaningful and something that brings even greater joyfulness for me. I also hope that all scholars and researchers gathered here can gain some meaningful and valuable insights, even if just a little inspiration that may contribute to your own academic work. I do not expect that many of your views or your lives will undergo major changes or transformations. I don't have that assumption. Because personally, after such a long and extended period of time spent learning, exploring, and studying Buddhism, I truly have an absolutely indescribable, almost beyond words, feeling about it. I feel that the teachings of Buddhism are extremely profound and vast. As intellectuals and scholars, we should devote sufficient time to studying them. Deep engagement with the subject, your views on lives, it can only benefit, never harm, your outlook on life, values, and understanding of the world. That's why I especially appreciate places such as the Institute of World Religion Studies, where all religions are respected and each is studied with scholarly rigor, this kind of open, free, and inclusive atmosphere and learning environment creates a foundation for interfaith dialogue. I believe that this is an inevitable trend in the future development of whole human society, and that will be definitely indispensable. But in this process, I personally, as a practicing Buddhist and also as a dedicated monastic in the community, I think it is necessary to share my own life experiences. That is, some of the things I know, whether they are small insights, brief realizations, or valuable gains from Buddhism, it is also necessary to share with everyone because many people might already be aware of it. When it comes to value orientation or the guiding direction of our education in today's world, in various situations, individuals lack in rational thinking and wisdom. This means that at times they may not fully apply logical reasoning or thoughtful judgment when making decisions. Why I say this? Because at this particular moment in our society, whether it's science or religion or any fields of study, discipline, when people make advocation, everyone feels that it's something new and fresh. But in the end, not many people actually benefit from it. Recently, I've noticed that people often talk about the herd effect. I can notice the herd effect also affects today's society. You may know that the so-called herd effect, originally a flock of sheep, is in fact a very disorganized group, and they have no opinions of their own, and their minds are quite simple. When a sheep makes any move, it has a huge and profound impact on the entire flock. If even one single sheep gets startled and jumps off a cliff, the rest may instinctively follow. Then it's very likely that all the other sheep will instantly unfollow and jump off the cliff as well. This phenomenon also exists in the modern society. For example, if one person thinks a clothing is really great, then everyone starts to think that clothing is great as well. Similarly, if one sees an advertisement or promotion information branding a certain food as being very good, then everyone rushes to buy it. Actually, whether from a scientific perspective or from a Buddhist perspective, people need a kind of rational wisdom in their lives. Without rational wisdom, there will be a lot of pseudoscience, even in science. In other words, fake science. In today's world, many advertisements, taking food advertisements as an example, which are everywhere, looking at their surface, judging by their look, the food is the healthiest and most beneficial to the body. But in reality, some of them may not actually be so. There are even some nutritional supplements that our bodies may not really need that much. But as people follow the media, television, and movies with such branding and ads, everyone parrots what others say and goes with the flow. This phenomenon actually exists even in worldly science. Alarmingly, many people today exploit the name of science or use similar pretexts to lead others astray into darkness. This phenomenon is real. This same problem also exists in today's religious circles. For example, in today's world, as soon as there is a bit of openness, people start believing in this religion or that religion. In fact, you can believe in any religion better than you don't believe in anything. But when you have religious faith, it should be a rational kind of faith. Buddhism has always been emphasizing rational wisdom and rational faith. Does Buddhism need to talk about faith? Yes, it does. In Buddhism, it is profoundly taught that the root of all virtues certainly is faith. There is even an inspiring saying, faith is the mother of a million virtues. But this kind of faith is not only found in Buddhism. Trust is also indeed very important within a family. If you badly lack trust, perhaps even towards your own family members, it is difficult to build any meaningful relationships among family members. But this kind of faith needs a certain wisdom. So today, as I speak with you, I wouldn't call this a formal speech, just sharing my thoughts, whatever comes to my mind. First of all, everyone should have this kind of faith. If you want to have faith, you need to have a kind of rational wisdom. Buddhism undoubtedly affirms rational wisdom's vital role in spiritual awakening, and Buddhism strongly advocates for it as well. I remember that in the Buddhist scriptures there is one called the Kalama Sutta. The Kalama Sutta indeed exists in Pali. It has been translated recently. After it was translated, there actually isn't much content inside. The main point is you shouldn't think of Buddhism as something that you can just simply trust in, have faith in, or rely on without question, almost blindly. Or just because these are the words of Gautama Buddha, you show them reverence unconditionally. How to apply the teachings. For true liberation, we must rely on our own understanding. Ultimately, you should observe from your own wisdom what truly brings you happiness. If it brings you genuine, clear, rational wisdom, then you can decide to rely on it. But if it brings you suffering rather than rational wisdom, then that's what you need to consider to abandon. I hope many people to learn about this Kalama Sutta resources could be found online. I actually haven't used a PowerPoint or any lecture notes here for everyone for this entire session. Sometimes, for example, giving a lecture with a PPT presentation, I have this feeling as if there are a lot of resources available for download online, abundant data, reasons to support the viewpoint. After the talk, the speaker and audience wouldn't get great benefits from it. Moreover, sometimes there is clear and certain difference between computer and mind talks. Considering this, I decided not to use a PPT, but when it is convenient, you can look up the Kalama Sutta online. Kalama Sutta is short, but within it, it talks about the rational wisdom of Buddhism in particular. Buddhism is not solely based on faith. Rather, it also encourages questioning and personal understanding. The suffering and happiness in our life mainly depend on what kind of causes and conditions which we can understand ourselves. This is what is stated in the scriptures. So I think among people attending the talk, some individuals may believe in Buddhism and some may not. This is not really the key point. Rather, if we are to have faith, it should actually be a faith grounded in wisdom. Looking at the major changes and transformations in Chinese history, most of time, I always believe that there is a kind of faith. Only when your material conditions are relatively good will you have a certain faith. This kind of faith might only be sought when your living conditions are relatively good. Back in the 1950s and 60s, even having enough to eat and wear was a big problem. And so that people probably didn't care much about spiritual matters, as everyone was just eager to have enough food and clothing. Even from the articles and speeches of the Nobel Prize laureate Mo Yan, you can see what people in society longed for back then. Not to mention ordinary people in the society, the goals of the people in the highest level, they intended to eat some dumplings or simply to get enough food and wear. Writing and publishing articles or being an official were just for this. They had such goals. During the Cultural Revolution, beliefs that people previously maintained, such as Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, and all kinds of thoughts since the Tang, Ming, and Yuan dynasties in the history. People believed in various religions before that time, and we could see at many places offerings laid out at homes or in the halls. Some were for the Buddhism, and some were for the Supreme Elder Lord and other figures. Almost all of these images were destroyed by the raising and promotion of so-called atheism. However, when people simply evaluate the special time from different perspectives, even though atheism was being promoted at that particular time, there was a great leader and a movement of deifying a person. Every household had to enshrine an image of this figure, the one even more grand and remarkably imposing than figures like Confucius or Mencius. Later, after the reform and opening up, it can be said that there was a bit more freedom and space in all aspects. But at that time, it turned into, we called the 8 immortals crossing the sea, each showing their unique skills. Many kinds of things appearing in society, such as Qigong, yoga, and psychological counseling, including some forms of hypnosis therapy, whether religious or non-religious, many kinds of groups. This is actually a positive aspect. Why is that? Because, first of all, people may not overly concerned about external things, such as food and other similar necessities of daily life. Then they start to look inward and need spiritual nourishment. In fact, many scientists nowadays, during their observations, found some human-animal differences. What are the differences? For example, if you lock a person and an animal in a prison, after a few days, when they are extremely hungry, you release them. When they was released, regardless it is a human or an animal, both of them firstly need food. The first thing for human is also seeking for food at the first place. Human will look for food, and so will the animal. So what's the difference after that? After it gets food, animals keeps looking for more. And apart from food, animals will not have other values or tastes. There's nothing else for them. It will be quite different for human after getting food. They might start thinking about their clothes and houses and consider some other elaborated aspects. Humans have another unique function. They start to think about matters of the mind and spirit. This is the matter of the human spirit, which greatly differentiated humans from animals. It's just like the analogy I mentioned earlier. People now are a little more open-minded. I think that people from different parts of the world first have external desires. When those external desires reach some point, they begin to look inward. As early as the 1970s and 80s, Western countries began, not only did they pursue external desires, eventually they wished to seek spiritual fulfillment and looked for various ways to achieve it. I visited many Western countries in 1993 and found the overall situation was quite similar to the current situation in China. The US and Canada, Japan, Germany, every household had its own car and everyone had their own house. Back in China then, private cars for ordinary families, private villas, high quality accommodation, which were all quite rare. At that time, people in those countries began to turn their attention inward, focusing on spiritual matters. Now, after people reach a level of material satisfaction, they begin to seek some true, genuinely values on a spiritual level. At that time, if we did not encounter a good religion or a good faith, it was very likely that we would come across all kinds of wrong paths and misguided views. This is very possible because when we ourselves do not possess profound wisdom and we have a hungry heart, we might encounter both real and fake nourishment outside. Why is it that nowadays some fanatical religions and cults are able to find a market here? There are various reasons for this. Like a recent saying, 2012, the end of the world will come tomorrow. Today, let's say we are having another topic in today's talk. Regarding this matter, I think many people actually, I've mentioned this on different occasions before, the so-called end of the world. If we look at it from the subtle perspective of impermanence, every single day is the very last day of the world, because that day will truly never come back again. For example, today is December 20th, 2012. For me, it is the last day in this world. It should be said like this. But will there be really an end worldwide? There is no doctrinal basis for this. Many people exaggerated a lot. In my hometown, many people were saying that the earth is about to be destroyed, so they didn't dare stay indoors and stayed outside. I told them, if the earth will be destroyed, then honestly, staying outside is completely... If it is destroyed, pitching tent outside may not have much effect either. Actually, all of this is just rumors that are in fact being spread from one person to another, and the overall level of most people, whether they are studying religion or science, they are actually not rational. There are not many people around us who are still in rational state. If someone comes along waving the banner of science and says, this is really good for your health, if you don't eat it, hormones will be lacking and your body can't work well soon. Complexion is not good. Skin tone is bad neither. You should eat more, and thus people will buy the medicine. A lot of fortune tellers and diviners observe your expression, your complexion. They'll tell you to eat this or do that. If you don't do it, you might face disasters. Many people believe this. Actually, whether it's in matters of faith or in virtually any other field or area of expertise, I feel most people don't have enough rationality or wisdom just because of this. Some Buddhist practice has become burning incense and worshipping Buddha. Is burning incense meritorious? Yes. I see many researchers with master degree here. We study Buddhism and won't say burning incense and worshipping Buddha lacks merit. But if Buddhist practice, if the entire spirit of Buddhism just burning incense, it is not the spirit of Buddha. The true spirit of the Buddha lies in these two things, wisdom and great compassion. Those studying Buddhism know this, but for those not studying Buddhism, it may just seem like a behavior. When they see someone disregards Dharma, people start to slander Buddhism. In fact, these are all completely unreasonable phenomena. However, we have to admit that we currently lack a high level of awareness on the truth. When we do not have a high level of awareness regarding any phenomenon in society, in the process of understanding, they may inevitably deviate from the principles to some extent. In these respects, everyone here should be studying various religions, especially in Buddhism. I have always believed that there is an extremely rigorous logic. This logic can definitely withstand any scrutiny, and it can also stand up to any speculation in the world. Professor Su Guohui is a neuroscience expert at the University of Hong Kong. Through many years of research and practice, he published some articles. I found that very agreeable. Why is that? Because he has engaged in scientific work for long. Initially, he also thought that so-called Buddhist theories might simply be about seeking refuge or becoming a monk was merely following formality. He held such views, but later, through various chances, after he genuinely committed himself to studying certain Buddhist principles, he ultimately found the concepts that resonated deeply were Buddhist concepts and teachings of impermanence and dependent origination. He cited a quote that many scholars have often referred. It was a statement by Einstein, who said, if any religion can coexist and be compatible with modern science, it would be Buddhism. He used this as a clear and convincing evidence. For Einstein, the father of modern science, his assessment and viewpoints is not just empty words. For numerous religions in the world, he developed the researches. This we can learn about from Einstein's biography. He had researched many religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and many others. So his conclusion was not baseless. The conclusion that he later reached was, if any religion could truly coexist with modern science, it would be Buddhism. If this statement were, in any way whatsoever, an exaggeration or a form of praise with an agenda on Buddhism, as a Buddhist myself, I really don't overly praise this either. But whether from the perspective of psychology or from logic, cosmology, and the study of life, in any field of knowledge, after long-term observation, I don't praise Buddhism simply because I am a Buddhist. Today, the Institute of World Religious Studies have people from various disciplines, so I would not reject any other religion either. But I myself have been studying and researching Buddhism for many years, and I always feel that no wisdom or science can surpass the theories and philosophies taught in Buddhism. None surpass them, nor will. Just now, as I mentioned, Professor Su cited Einstein's endorsement as evidence. Secondly, he has also said that the concepts of impermanence and dependent origination in Buddhism are very much in line with the spirit of science. This is something I especially hope many young people here will pay attention to, that you should perhaps take a closer look at the Buddhist views on impermanence and dependent origination. This is very important. Why? Impermanence is not merely a matter regarding faith. Some have faith, some don't, and everyone's values differ. But if we speak from the perspective of truth, you have to acknowledge it. When we discuss impermanence, starting with coarse impermanence, everything in the world, the changing seasons or people's birth, aging, sickness, and death, life process from infancy, youth, old age, until death, or family situations and background, all of these things undergo major changes of impermanence. Buddhism clearly explained these principles. If you look more closely, Buddhism also talks about subtle impermanence. What is subtle impermanence? Strictly speaking, in fact, any phenomenon, at the very moment it arises, it also ceases. That is to say, arise is cease, and arise equals cease. Is arising really the exactly same as ceasing? In reality, you have to acknowledge this. If you don't acknowledge it this way, in the first instant, for example, we say 1 second divided into 1,000 milliseconds. Within 1 second, if it arises but does not change, it remains until the 1 microsecond and become one with it. The third and fourth microseconds remain unchanged. Even up to 1 minute would remain unchanged. You'll figure it out. In this way, this phenomenon would exist permanently as the preceding process and the subsequent. You can't recognize them as the same. If you consider them one, then the phenomena of the previous second and the following second, constancy is an error. A permanent entity among all things, no matter it is in the outside or inside, is fundamentally impossible to find. Therefore, we must clearly understand that ultimately, whether from the perspective of our mental continuum or in essence from an illusory standpoint, we can say that in terms of appearances, this world does exist. While when observing at the level of illusory appearances, arising is ceasing, ceasing is arising, they're one unity. This is the truth of subtle impermanence, or from the perspective of dependent origination and emptiness. All the things we see now on the surface appear to truly exist. But if we look at their essence in terms of quantum mechanics and physics, in fact, all phenomena are illusory. All things have no inherent essence. Why the string theory advocated by Hawking, it discovered ultimately, no matter it is wave or magnetic field, any phenomenon at all, at the very moment it appears, all lack true substantial existence. In the Avatamsaka Sutra, this is called a wondrous function, also referred to as a string. Previously, some scholars compare string theory with the current string theory and believing that all phenomena have no true substantial nature. All appearances are illusory. This is what the Diamond Sutra says. Theoretically, this is hard to understand for us, but in reality, all phenomena, whether they're antiquarks or quarks, all these phenomena, visually you might see something, but if you truly observe them, there are these so-called subtle material particles, and when you observe these particles more closely, their essence also does not hold up. In the past, when quantum mechanics, physics, and relativity eventually matured over time, it was probably around the beginning of the last century that the uncertainty principle was discovered. People here may have studied the uncertainty principle. This is more in accordance with the understanding of Yogacara. I'm not a specialist in it, and I haven't studied it much, just learned a little. It is a general principles described in a few famous books. These sensational principles, actually, the true answers and root causes could be found in Buddhism. Why is that? Any object, a subatomic phenomenon, for example, when someone uses their mind to observe it, when I haven't observed it yet, its objective material state still exists as it is. Whether we are measuring its wave properties or its particle properties, the objective material entity changes. What is the reason for this change? When consciousness intervenes the object, the originally objective existence becomes influenced by subjective consciousness. So precise measurement becomes impossible. That is to say, in the real world, purely objective entities do not exist, and mind instead plays the dominant role. What is this? This is our consciousness. For example, when I test this subtle material particle, it will change according to my consciousness. When an expert conducts the test, the subtle particles will also change according to the expert's consciousness. Why? Scientists think it is difficult to provide explanations. Through a person's consciousness operates, it not only causes external things to change, but can even emit extraordinarily vast waves that are boundless and infinite, like the Milky Way galaxy. A wave is an energy that can't be seen or touched. This kind of energy is vast when it is measured. But when I want to measure a subtle particle, this particle is extremely tiny and can be further divided. With such a principle in place, it truly is impossible to determine anything at all for certainty. In Buddhism, this is manifestation of collective karma of sentient beings, and karmic force is the principle of uncertainty. Why is that? If four people looking at a flower, one thinks it's beautiful while another says okay, but someone even thinks it's ugly, whose aesthetic judgment is the standard? Beautiful or ugly? As one's consciousness, when each person's consciousness intervenes with this flower, then on this object, is there a fixed beautiful or ugly inherent on the flower? It's indeterminate, as everyone's consciousness is different. Buddhism calls this all phenomena are created by the mind. Sometimes I read some books in Buddhism and found that in modern society, some scientists and theorists, in the process of their exploration of things, to be honest, I naturally developed confidence in Buddhism. The faith may be my discriminating thought, but it is a tested scientific belief developed through study and comparison. So I think it would be best in this situation for many people to use the many various methods of observation found in Buddhism to examine the nature of things. In ancient India, there was a particularly renowned master in discerning emptiness, Chandrakirti, who is the successor of Nagarjuna Bodhisattva. Regarding Sakyamuni Buddha's interpretations on emptiness, Nagarjuna should be considered the most authoritative scholar. So what did Chandrakirti say? In his work Entering the Middle, he stated that all manifestations is created by the mind. Whether it is objects or sentient beings, all of these are simply created by our minds. Sentient beings or objects, natural or social science, we can also put it this way. Because natural science generally contains research fields, it deals more with external phenomena, and social science, anything people meet with, that is to say, including education and social phenomena, can all be considered as such. All social phenomena or natural phenomena are in fact ultimately constructs of the human mind. However, this idea of mental constructs is not something that everyone can immediately understand. It requires a process, we can say, and the process, frequently mentioned and discussed in Buddhism, contains listening, contemplation, and practice. This is a very important step indeed, because if you haven't deeply listened and contemplated without thorough studies, it is difficult to grasp the true meaning and essence within. Therefore, I think that many people, when it comes to learning Buddhism, need long-term process of listening and receiving teachings. For listening, I come from Tibet. And in Tibet, there is a tradition which is the method of debate in Buddhist logic pramana. Buddhist debate should be said to be indeed an indispensable approach for today's scholars. Now, if scholars feel interested in a subject, just talk about it, glance through a book to conduct researches, get a rough understanding of the subject, and which is considered an attitude toward learning. However, in fact, the real method of studying logic cannot be left at that. It should follow learning Buddhist logic in Tibetan Buddhism. Regarding a specific topic, many wise individuals come together to thoughtfully debate and discuss it. Eventually, discussion will and definitely make every issue very clear. This is important. Nowadays, some Buddhists also have only a vague or superficial understanding of Buddhism. If past and future lives truly exist, I guess so, or that's how it is. Are good deeds rewarded and bad deeds punished? It should be true. I've heard that it is. It is this kind of indecisive state and also unreasonable for science. I also have confidence in science because scientists have used rigorous reasoning and empirical evidence to demonstrate concepts and achievements that benefit humanity. This is something that definitely goes without saying. The principal approach is specifically the debate method of Tibetan Buddhism. For example, if samsara truly exists, you need to spend a long time carefully and thoughtfully engaging in debate about it. In this process, it's as if the real sun emerges from the clouds, things get clarified. It's not a muddled or confused state like being wrapped up in chaff. You can't say it is, but you also can't say it isn't. Right now, some Buddhists' views and behaviors have a somewhat noticeable sense of confusion. This is unreasonable in scientific research. Currently, some scholars and students, during their research process, haven't delved particularly deeply. They should nevertheless fully and thoroughly understand this important principle. When you truly and deeply understand this principle, you won't ever lose your sense of conviction. Buddhism now has three very important processes, whether you are practicing, spreading the Dharma to benefit sentient beings, or conducting experiments. The three stages are critical. What are they? First is observation. Even for spiritual practice, you must first observe in detail. Then you proceed to practice, and finally, the results will be obtained. Spiritual practice is the same way. For example, when you want to practice, you should first use your wisdom to observe. In the end, you will get a clear result. Otherwise, without observation, including, for example, Chan Buddhism, which is an excellent path for penetrating mysteries of mind, but some people do not understand Buddhist teachings at the beginning and directly enter into Chan practice. This can also be dangerous. Why is it? If you don't truly understand the underlying principles, it's nothing than wasting time. Long ago, Master Mazu, renowned for wisdom, practiced the so-called sit meaningless meditation at the beginning, no realm at all in the dry Zen, not visualizing anything, sitting there whole time. He seems to be in a state of practice, but later Chan Master Yuerang noticed his practice not satisfied with the state of being obsessed. After that, the Master Wairang played another role there. Every day he would grind a tile, and then the Master Mazu said, "The sound you make have been badly affecting me. Why do you keep doing this every day?" He replied, "I was grinding a tile into a mirror." He said rubble was not originally the raw material of mirrors, so how can it become a mirror? Your meditation practice is like that. Every day you just sit there stiffly, but this isn't the real source of wisdom. So in Chan Buddhism, do they have a way to settle the mind? There should be. When each person truly recognizes the original nature of the mind, then in this process, calm abiding to stabilize mind is extremely meaningful. If we haven't recognized the true nature of the mind, then no matter what we do, it's actually simply a phenomenon. This point was raised by a great Indian scholar called Shantideva. He wrote Bodhisattva's Way of Life. I wonder if you've read it. That's truly impactful over thousands of years. It has transformed many people's ways of thinking and changed the destinies of countless individuals. He once said, "If one does not know this mind, the supreme essence of all profound teachings, indeed, chasing happiness or escaping suffering, endlessly adrift, without meaning." I remember this enlightening sentence clearly. If you haven't understood the true nature of the mind, and you want to attain happiness or escape suffering, then that's impossible, and ultimately, it has no real meaning. It is extremely important for you to understand the mysteries of the mind. There was a master in Chan Buddhism, and in the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch, this case was also mentioned. When you neither think good nor think evil, at that very moment, the original face of your mind will appear. Then it becomes like drinking water. Only you know if it's hot or cold. When you genuinely comprehend your mind's state, like drinking water, the temperature, like when flower blossoms, one sees the Buddha. However, before you reach this state, you must systematically understand Buddhism. Nowadays, many people do not truly understand the origins and nature of the mind. Just rushing into stillness, Chan meditation or absorption is dangerous. Therefore, I think that for those present here, when it comes to recognizing the true nature of your own mind, you especially need to have rich knowledge in this area. In fact, many people in the world, perhaps, every day is a busy life, whether for their families or for their work or for other aspects of their lives. Everyone is busy every day. But in reality, the true happiness we gain may not actually be that much. I see people living in the cities should be very educated and knowledgeable, and their standards for clothing and living are also quite high. But how much happiness they have is hard to say. This might be different from my hometown, the remote mountain valley where I was born. Up until now, the elderly and the children there have never seen planes, trains, or highways and computer, TV, or movie. They didn't know these. Humanity enters the 21st century. People's lives in these remote areas, like the people from the regions just mentioned, can be said regarding the dazzling world, they have probably never seen it nor experienced it. But their feelings in hearts, I would say, their happiness and contentment is greater than many people here who possess status, power, and fame, and so on. Why is that? I'm not saying it's because they are poor so that they are so happy. If it were true, beggars are very happy. Not necessarily. In my hometown, since childhood, this Buddhist culture has already permeated their very being. Within Buddhist culture, there is an aspect such as what is called contentment and having few desires with a sense of satisfaction and these kinds of teachings. When they put and reflect the knowledge into practice in their daily lives, they are truly able to experience this kind of happiness. So I was just thinking, for everyone here today and all others, I believe that for people to find true happiness and would like to achieve genuine happiness, you can enjoy spiritual nourishment and draw compassion from your faith, and then you can truly find satisfaction once you aspire these qualities. Even if you have no status or wealth, you can still be happy. Of course, when someone has status and wealth, there are actually ways to enjoy it as well. Nowadays in the world, including Western countries, some people have exceptional wealth, but if they don't know how to use the wealth, they'll be deeply troubled by it. However, if you understand the Buddhist principle of dependent origination, causes and conditions coming together, even when you are exceptionally rich, own social status and occupy certain resources, you still feel gratitude for others, so you will have no trouble. The merits gained in the past lives appear through all causes gathered. You will feel happy in your heart and have relatively skillful ways to deal with wealth. However, when you are penniless and have nothing at all, you would also have the same kind of grateful and joyful heart. This point may be something that many people cannot achieve nowadays. Material things seem to have a direct relationship with our mindset. Do we humans really need external material resources in our everyday lives? It's a question that often comes up. The truth is we need some to meet our basic needs. But what is truly most fundamental? It is our mind. When the heart has a sense of contentment, gratitude, love, compassion, and equanimity, then even if the outside society is in great turmoil and unrest, in reality, we can still live a very peaceful and truly joyful life, experiencing moments of serenity and happiness. Throughout Buddhist history, countless eminent monks, great masters, and accomplished practitioners have continuously emerged. In their life experiences, it's quite fair to say they encountered many trials and tribulations. At certain times, they also experienced great happiness, significant success, and an immense sense of honor moments that brought them deep joy. But even then, they would not become arrogant, nor would they ever think too highly of themselves or feel superior to others. Like some other people who, as soon as they have a bit of wealth, ability, or status, look down on everyone around them. They would never act that way. They sometimes also encountered various forms of discrimination from people, being shunned by society and so on. Even then, they would not become disappointed, fall into despair, or resort to suicide because of it. So I believe many people here today, if one truly attains certain spiritual realms within Buddhist teachings, such attainment itself becomes a source of joy and fulfillment, which is especially rare and precious, extremely valuable and uncommon. This kind of rarity is also a cause of happiness in life. A few years ago, some scholars in the United States undertook a series of research studies on what makes for a happy life. They specifically chose a topic and conducted some tests on certain people's bodies. At that time, in Tibetan Buddhism, there was a master named Mingyu Rinpoche. When scientists measured neural activity index related to happiness in his brain, they discovered his index in the happiness regions of his brain during meditation was more than 7 times higher than ordinary people. The scientists were amazed. They even thought perhaps their scientific instruments were broken. But later they discovered that his state of happiness was truly achieved through meditation and spiritual practice. Therefore, eventually he was honored by Time magazine as the happiest person in the world. I believe there are many people in this world who possess inner happiness. However, you may not find people with great happiness if you search in cities among people who have wealth, talent, and status. High likelihood to find wealthy people in cities. On the contrary, in communities with pure faith, you will discover that there are indeed quite a few happy people with inner happiness, which is more commonly found. So in today's society, after people have achieved material satisfaction, in fact, most of them actually long for spiritual faith. Previously, a professor from East China Normal University, who is a well-known scholar named Lu Zhongyu, he conducted a comprehensive survey in 2005 specifically concerning the relationship between faith and happiness. In the end, the result clearly revealed that people who had explicitly acknowledged no religious affiliation and identified themselves as atheists made up only a small amount, not reaching up to 15%. Professor Liu drew this conclusion. The survey demonstrated that spiritual belief had become a universal phenomenon among contemporary Chinese citizens, reflecting a widespread inner need across the entire population. It is also common worldwide. For those with faith, I believe the greatest harvest lies in deriving kindness, compassion, and love from your beliefs. I believe that faith is also truly very essential for our inner peace. Actually, I myself often come into contact with people from all walks of life in society. People without faith, I would say, have relatively empty thoughts. They often tend to have rather empty minds. Without a goal in life, every day is just simply passing by like this. For example, you go to work, and after work you go home, you watch some TV, and when you get tired, you go to sleep. The next day, you live the same kind of life all over again. Of course, on one hand, it's a personal choice of lifestyle, but on the other hand, from the perspective of being truly responsible to our society, people need to have their own living space, and each individual choose their own unique way of living. At the same time, I believe that what is even more important for entire humanity is to promote compassion. Some time ago, I was particularly fond of the International Forum for Religious and Philanthropic Leaders, which had been organized by the distinguished and renowned China Academy of Social Sciences. At the forum, basically, when they were summarizing at the end, there were more than 40 speakers. I listened carefully when those 40-plus speakers gave their presentations and also took very detailed notes on the views, suggestions and understanding of various religions around the world regarding charity and compassion. I also learned a lot of knowledge from this myself. I had some reflections that on the surface, people are all the same, but when it comes to values and lifestyle, they are quite different. Some people live their entire lives only for themselves, living for survival, while others not only consider themselves living for themselves, but also become a lamp, shining light into the darkness, illuminating countless people and gently warm others around them. So through some people's words and things they do, on the surface, Wealthy people, same with others, and people with status, same with others as well. It might look like we are all the same, but when observing these differences, it is obvious due to people's distinct lifestyles. The roles that people play and contributions that people can make are quite different. People may say the wealth and social status are their good fortune and blessings, while the so-called blessings are really just a subtle and insidious manifestation of possession. For example, if you have status and occupy all positions of power, but you do nothing to serve society as you're supposed, or if you have wealth, accounting, and taking up all the resources, but you are unwilling to make any contributions to the earth or to the society as you should. If so, a human life only lasts a few decades, and after that is over, can we really say we still possess our wealth and status? Not necessarily. So in this case, I think what we particularly need is truly altruistic spirit that Mahayana Buddhism speaks of in life. That is the essence. Buddhism teaches that the true mystery of the mind must be analyzed from two aspects. The first, emptiness and luminosity, are indivisible and non-dual, which requires wisdom to uncover the essence of mind. Without wisdom, how can we understand the true nature of our emptiness and how it is inseparable from luminosity? It is very difficult to comprehend through scientific or psychological methods alone. You'll find this is very profound when you truly realize it. Many great masters achieved realization of the nature of mind because they saw through and let go of attachments. But this is not the same as what some people say about Buddhism, that seeing through means ignoring all your family and letting go means neglecting all your responsibilities. When I take a taxi, many drivers ask me frequently, aren't you in pain? Aren't you truly feeling sad? Can you really get through this? How do you cope these matters? But if you truly understand the real principles of Buddhism and the meaning of seeing through, not seeing through doesn't necessarily bring you happiness. Perhaps you will gain happiness from seeing through things. People have different ways of finding happiness, but this requires a certain level of wisdom. On another level, the most fundamental meaning of the mind is that we should benefit others. When it comes to benefiting others, many researchers and scholars nowadays, including those of us who are religious practitioners, such still have room to improve and further develop our altruistic mindset in our daily lives. Otherwise, everyone's life research and everything else will ultimately revolve around self-centeredness. If it's all about personal achievement and self-advancement, then perhaps that's not truly meaningful after all. Why is Mahayana Buddhism so great? It is because, in fact, it contains extremely profound meaning. So today, I hope that people present here will see the spiritual need for us to communicate with each other in the future. In particular, for myself, personally, after many years of studying Buddhism, Shakyamuni Buddha left his teachings to the world more than 2,500 years ago, but his inspiring and enduring spirit can truly be embraced and thoughtfully applied by people from all walks of life at any time. In the past, the poet Mr. Zhang Kejia once said, "Some people are alive, yet they are already dead. Some people are dead, we say, yet they are still alive. If someone who has died can still be alive, it refers to their spirit living on forever. However, there are certain individuals who still alive, seem as if they have already died long ago and left behind merely empty shells." As a Buddhist, Shakyamuni Buddha cannot be described in this way. Shakyamuni Buddha entered parinirvana 2,556 years ago, yet his spirit, wisdom, and teachings, whether in Eastern culture or Western culture, in this vast and boundless world, the benefit he brings to all sentient beings is immeasurable. I believe that in the future, whether it is humans or all forms of life that inhabit this world, his spirit will always continue to shine so brightly and truly forever. I'll just keep it as concise as possible and conclude things here. All right, thank you so much.